Chapter 1. The ride on a rainy night. The rain poured heavily. The street seemed swallowed by the thick curtain of water. The street lights stretched into trembling streaks. Locke, a taxi driver with more than 10 years of experience, wiped the windshield with his hand, silently cursing. Tonight's gonna be a dead night for business. The clock showed past midnight. The rain-soaked streets were deserted. Only a few motorbikes rushing by as if chased by ghosts. Locke planned to drive for another half hour before heading back to the garage to rest, when suddenly he saw a figure by the roadside, arm raised to hail. A flash of lightning revealed a girl in a white dress, long wet hair hanging loose, her face hidden in the shadows. Delighted, Locke pulled over. The door opened, and the girl sat silently in the backseat. A faint, musty odor spread inside, making Locke shiver. He glanced into the rearview mirror and saw only her eyes, dark, hollow, without a glimmer of light. "Where to?" Locke asked, forcing his voice to sound casual. Her reply was soft, cold, like a draft from a grave. "To Doi Cat Cemetery?" Locke stiffened. That cemetery lay far out in the suburbs, a place no one dared visit at night. But thinking of the fare, he nodded. The car rolled forward, wipers beating steadily, rain hammering on the roof. The girl remained silent the entire ride. She didn't move, didn't stir. Locke felt no warmth from the backseat, only a bone-chilling cold. At the cemetery gate, she whispered, "Stop here." Locke braked. He turned. The backseat was empty. Water still dripped on the cushion, proof someone had just been there. Before he could react, the rearview mirror tilted downward on its own, reflecting her pale face right behind his head, white skin, bulging eyes, lips twisted into a ghastly grin. Lightning ripped across the sky. The headlights went out. Locke screamed, body paralyzed. In the darkness, he heard a whisper close to his ear. "You will drive me again?" And then, silence. Chapter 2. The Old Driver. Locke woke the next morning in exhaustion. He couldn't remember how he had returned to the garage. Only the pale face and chilling whisper lingered in his mind. At a roadside cafe, he recounted the cemetery ride to some fellow drivers. They laughed, teasing him about being scared straight by a ghost. But one man did not laugh, old too. A 60-year-old driver with white hair and bloodshot eyes that looked forever sleepless. Old 2 slowly set down his cup, voice hoarse. "It's no joke, Locke. That Doi Cat Cemetery. Many drivers have seen things." The group fell silent. Locke frowned. "Seen? What do you mean?" Old 2 sighed, lighting a trembling cigarette. 20 years ago, at the road leading to that cemetery, there was a horrific accident. A bus overturned, killing dozens. Among them, a girl in a white dress. They say her spirit still wanders, hailing taxis whenever it rains. He stared directly into Locke's eyes, his voice heavy. "You're lucky you came back. Long ago, a young driver picked her up. The next morning, they found his taxi in a ditch, doors locked, him stiff behind the wheel, mouth frozen wide open as if screaming." The cafe air grew dense. The others shifted uneasily. Old 2 stubbed out his cigarette, leaning closer to Locke. "If you ever meet her again, never look into the rearview mirror. That's how she drags you along." Locke sat frozen. The memory of the tilting mirror and the white face seared into his mind. Outside, sudden rain rattled on the metal roof. Locke shuddered, feeling that someone was waiting for another ride. Chapter 3. The Passenger Without a Shadow. That night, though fear gnawed at him, Locke returned to the streets. A taxi driver couldn't afford brakes, not with debts piling high. After the rain, the city felt colder, mist rising like thin smoke under the yellow streetlights. It was nearly 1 a.m. when he spotted a middle-aged man waving for a ride. The man looked proper, white shirt, trousers, neatly combed hair. He opened the back door with a faint smile. Relieved, Locke thought, finally, a normal passenger. "Take me to Hangach Street," the man said in a warm, steady voice. The car moved, but minutes later, unease crept in. In the mirror, the man's face blurred, like veiled by smoke. When Locke glanced at the window reflection, his heart jolted. The man cast no shadow beneath the streetlights. Terrified, he forced himself to ask, "Which part of Hangach are you headed to?" The man smiled, eyes deep and hollow. "Home." "What number?" Locke's grip on the wheel trembled. The man gave no answer. Instead, he said slowly, voice chilling, "You don't need to know. Just drive to the end of the street. I'll show you." Locke dared not look back again. His chest pounded, sweat dripping cold. At the end of Hang Gatch, he turned, and the seat was empty. The doors were locked, no sign of exit, only a faint depression on the cushion where someone had sat. At that instant, the taxi radio blared. The dispatcher's voice was sharp. "Locke, where did you just pick up a passenger? GPS shows your car stopping at number 12 Hang Gatch. But that house has been abandoned for over 20 years. The owner, a middle-aged man, died in an accident right in front." Locke froze, hands trembling on the wheel. In his ears echoed the warm, familiar voice. "Thank you for bringing me home." Chapter 4. The Ride to the Cemetery. The next night, Locke drove again. He thought of resting for a few days, but debts and bills left him no choice. Anxiety clung to him, though he tried to dismiss it. "It's all in my head." The city was eerily still, wind whistling through rain-soaked trees. At 2 a.m., just as he planned to head downtown, he saw a hand raised in the distance. A woman in a thin raincoat, her face hidden beneath an old conical hat. Locke hesitated, then slowed. She entered the backseat, voice rasping like from underground. "Take me to Doi Cat Cemetery." Locke's heart seized. The same words, the white-dressed girl had said them. His throat dry. He wanted to refuse, but in the mirror her piercing eyes glowed beneath the hat, staring straight at him. He obeyed. The road to the cemetery was desolate, overgrown with wild grass, thick fog rolling on both sides. Tires groaned against the uneven pavement like mournful cries. At the gate, the woman nodded. "Thank you." She opened the door, stepping out, but instead of walking into the cemetery, her body slowly dissolved into the mist, leaving only the tattered raincoat collapsing into a puddle. Locke sat paralyzed. He slammed the accelerator, desperate to escape, but after only a few dozen meters, the rearview mirror revealed the backseat packed with figures, headless corpses. Blood-soaked faces, eyes wide and unblinking, all staring at him. Whispers rose in unison, chilling his spine. "Take us home?" Locke screamed, hands trembling on the wheel. The taxi swerved wildly through the foggy road, a vessel for restless souls. Chapter 5. The Song from the Radio. After that cemetery night, Locke felt hollow. He swore off late-night fares, but meager income couldn't feed his family. Once more, he drove, praying for ordinary passengers. The city was unusually quiet. No rain, only wind cutting cold through the buildings. Locke turned on the radio to break the silence. At first, regular broadcasts, old love songs, familiar announcers. Then, static erupted, the dial spinning on its own, red light flickering. From the speakers came a strange female voice, weak, mournful, like echoing from underground. "Tonight, I wait. Tonight, I remember. The last ride." Locke froze, skin crawling. No instruments, only a trembling female voice, like sobbing. The tone was unmistakable. It was the girl in the white dress. He twisted the knob off, even pulled the power cord, yet the voice still filled the cab. Louder, closer, as if someone whispered into his ear. In the mirror, Locke saw her, a blurry figure huddled on the backseat, hair drenched, face pale, lips moving in sync with the song. The singing turned to sobs. "Take me home?" Suddenly, the radio flared back to life. On its screen, words glowed clear. "Doi Cat Cemetery, 2 a.m. At that exact moment, the dashboard clock struck 2 a.m. The car shuddered to a halt. Locke sat frozen, breath trapped, hands trembling. In that instant he knew. His taxi was no longer just a livelihood. It had become a carriage for the dead. Chapter 6. The Cursed Intersection. That night, Locke decided to take a different route, far from the road that led to the cemetery. But fate seemed to mock him. The taxi wandered into an unfamiliar area. The clock showed 1:45 a.m. The sky was dry, yet thick fog blanketed the streets. Locke cursed under his breath. "Damn it. How did I get lost here?" Ahead lay a pitch-black intersection. The traffic light blinked red, but no other cars passed. A chill crawled up Locke's spine. He knew this place well, the intersection where a terrible accident had once occurred. A truck crushing an entire family of 3. Locals called it the Cursed Intersection. Locke stopped the car. The ticking of the second hand on the clock grew heavy. Suddenly, out of the fog, a motorbike sped past, yet it made no sound. Moments later, a piercing wail rose from behind, as if someone had fallen. Inside the cab, the temperature plunged. The rearview mirror rattled on its own. Locke tried not to look, but a faint hiss at his ear forced him to turn. On the backseat sat a couple and their child, huddled together, faces mangled with blood and dust. The child lifted its hollow eyes, whispering through sobs, "Driver, please take me home." Locke's body shook, hands slamming the wheel, stammering, "Leave me, please leave me alone." The traffic light abruptly went dark. The entire intersection sank into blackness. When the streetlights flickered back, the backseat was empty. Only faint water stains remained, and bloody handprints smeared across the glass. Panicked, Locke stomped the accelerator, tearing through the intersection, ears still haunted by the lingering sound of a child's cry. Chapter 7. The Stench of Death. After the night at the cursed intersection, Locke was nearly broken. He thought of quitting taxi driving altogether, but with debts and a family to feed, he forced himself back behind the wheel. That night, the streets were damp after a light drizzle. Locke drove slowly, his mind still haunted by the child's cries. Suddenly, a strange stench crept through the cab, pungent, rotten, like the odor of a long-decayed corpse. He rolled down the windows, thinking the smell came from outside, but the more he opened them, the stronger the stench grew, as if it emanated from inside the car. He pulled over, switched on the interior light, and checked. The floor mats were clean, nothing unusual, but when he raised his head, he froze. Dark, muddy stains spread across the backseat, as though something rotten had sat there. The smell thickened, choking him, making him gag. Trembling, Locke grabbed a can of air freshener and sprayed frantically. Useless. Then, the radio crackled alive, a murmur slipping through. "Don't drive us away. This smell belongs to us." Locke panicked, yanking the power cord out, but the voice still echoed. Heart racing, he sped down the empty road, desperate to escape. Only when he reached a brightly lit gas station did the stench fade. He stepped out, gasping, drenched in sweat. When he turned back to look inside, the stains on the seat were gone, as if they had never existed. But in the rearview mirror, he glimpsed a withered, rotting hand stroking the seat cushion slowly, before fading into nothingness. Chapter 8. The Woman in White. That night, the city drowned once more in rain. Heavy drops hammered the taxi roof, mixing with the sharp whistle of the wind. Locke drove on, muttering under his breath, "Please, let nothing happen tonight." It was past 12:30. The suburban road stretched empty under dim yellow lights reflecting on wet asphalt. Then he saw her, a woman in a white dye, hair hanging loose, face hidden beneath the dripping strands, standing beneath a street lamp. Locke froze. Instinct told him to drive past. Yet, as if compelled by an unseen force, his hands turned the wheel, bringing the taxi to a stop. The door opened. She stepped in silently, a wave of cold air flooding the cab. In the mirror, her face was obscured by her hair, nothing but a pale blur. "Where to, miss?" Locke asked, voice trembling. Her reply was shrill, like wind through a crack. "Take me back to the old hospital?" The taxi rolled forward. Rain thickened, blurring the windshield. Streets deserted, the only sound the monotonous scrape of the wipers. Locke dared another glance at the mirror. This time, her hair had shifted aside, revealing half a face, skin deathly pale, bulging eyes, mouth torn wide to the ear, smeared with fresh blood. His throat tightened, hands shaking on the wheel. The woman tilted her head, whispering in a chilling tone, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" A shrill laugh burst out, echoing through the cab. The mirror rattled violently, reflecting her bloodied, distorted visage again and again. Locke panicked, stomping the accelerator. The taxi roared down the rain-soaked road. When he finally slammed the brakes and turned, the seat was empty. Only a streak of water mixed with red stains seeped into the fabric, soaking deeper with every second. Chapter 9. The Passenger Who Never Paid. That night, the sky was clear for once after endless days of rain. Locke hoped a quiet night would ease his fears. Around 1 a.m., near the old bus station, he saw a man waving for a ride. The figure was strange, tall and thin, wearing a dark coat, a hat pulled low to cover most of his face. Most noticeable was the large, worn suitcase he carried, its leather cracked and peeling. The man silently entered the backseat, setting the suitcase beside him. No greeting, only a low murmur. "Take me to the end of Bach My Street." The taxi rolled forward. The air grew thick, heavy. A rusty, metallic smell, like dried blood, filled the car. Locke glanced in the mirror, catching only the man's bony hand gripping the suitcase, fingers stiff like bones. At the destination, the meter blinked. Locke turned and asked carefully, "The fare, please." The man slowly opened the suitcase. Locke's heart pounded, breath caught in his throat. But instead of money, thick streams of fresh blood spilled out, flooding across the floor. Locke screamed, bolting from the car. When he turned back, the taxi lights still glowed, doors wide open, but the suitcase was gone. The backseat empty, not a drop of blood left. He stood trembling, gasping for air. Then, from the radio, a whisper seeped through. "I've already paid. My blood is the fare." A chill like ice pierced his spine. Locke floored the accelerator, fleeing like a madman, knowing with dread that his taxi had become a place of trade between the living and the dead. Chapter 10. The Rearview Mirror. After so many haunted nights, Locke began to fear his own car. Every time he sat in the driver's seat, he felt eyes watching him from the back. That night, the streets were empty. Locke drove in uneasy silence, muttering prayers. The wipers scraped steadily, the clock striking 2 a.m. Then suddenly, the rearview mirror trembled. At first, he thought the road was bumpy, but moments later, the mirror shifted on its own, reflecting a deathly pale face, lips cracked, grinning wide to the ears. Locke jolted, quickly adjusting it back, but the moment his hand left, the mirror twisted again, showing the same ghastly face. The hollow eyes stared directly into him, as though pulling him inward. In a panic, Locke covered the mirror with a cloth, forcing his focus on the road. But horror struck. The windshield now bore the same ghastly face, plastered against the glass, breathing with him. Chilling laughter echoed, near and far. Locke shouted, "Go away! Stop haunting me!" Suddenly, the mirror dropped, shattering on the floor. Shards scattered, each reflecting distorted faces, all grinning grotesquely. His breath caught, body shaking as he slammed the accelerator, racing into the night. But even with the mirror broken, when he dared glance upward, he saw it, that pale face still hovering in midair, clinging to him. Chapter 11. The Fateful Ride. That night, the sky was clear, no rain, no fog. The silence itself felt ominous. Locke drove with unease, sensing doom lurking ahead. Around 1:30 a.m., on the roadside of the suburbs, a man in a black cloak hailed him. The man was tall, face swallowed in shadow. Only his eyes glowed faintly like ghostly flames. The door opened, and the man stepped inside, voice hoarse. "Take me into the forest, the tram forest." Locke froze. The tram forest had long been abandoned after a massive fire killed many. Locals whispered of wandering souls still trapped there. Are you sure?" Locke stammered. The man nodded silently. Cold air poured from the backseat, making goosebumps crawl across Locke's skin. Helpless, he steered onto the narrow dirt path. The deeper he drove, the denser the trees, the darker the shadows. The headlights barely pierced the blackness, insects droning like a chorus of the dead. Suddenly, smoke filled the cab, thick with the stench of burning wood. Locke coughed violently. Turning to see, the man had vanished. In his place, the seat smoldered, handprints scorched deep into the fabric. From within the smoke came screams, twisted with children's cries. "We burned here, we died here, take us away." Green fire burst around the taxi, lighting the forest in hellish glow. Locke shrieked, fighting the wheel, but his arms were locked stiff. In the rearview mirror, the man in the cloak sat calmly, eyes blazing, lips curling into a hideous smile. When the taxi finally broke free from the forest, the flames vanished. The cab was empty. Only the acrid stench of charred flesh clung stubbornly to every surface. And Locke knew, that man wasn't a passenger, but a soul dragging him into his fateful ride. Chapter 12. Children's Laughter. After the nightmare in Tram Forest, Locke swore never to drive far again. He stuck to the busy city streets, thinking the crowds and lights would keep the spirits at bay. But fate had other plans. That night, close to 2 a.m., the streets grew deserted. Locke had just dropped off a passenger at an intersection when suddenly children's laughter rang out inside the cab. Clear, high-pitched giggles, as if from some hidden corner. He stiffened, snapping his head back. The backseat was empty. The laughter chimed again, closer this time, right by his ear. Then came the patter of small feet running across the floor mats, followed by a whisper, "Driver, take me out to play." Cold sweat drenched his back. Locke trembled, flooring the accelerator. But the faster he drove, the more the laughter multiplied, until it sounded like a whole group of children playing in the car. Suddenly, the radio lit up, words scrawled across the screen. "Where are our parents? Where are our parents?" The laughter broke into sobs. The cab filled with wailing cries. Piercing, heartbreaking. In the mirror, Locke saw 3 small figures huddled on the seat. Dripping wet, faces pale and swollen, eyes wide like those who had drowned. One child lifted its head, water gushing from its mouth, voice choking. "Driver, take us home?" Locke screamed, barreling the taxi through the streets. At last, under the bright floodlights of a parking lot, the voices ceased. The backseat was empty. But there, stamped deep into the upholstery, were tiny wet footprints, cold and glistening. He buried his face in his hands, shaking. Tonight, his cab had carried souls of children who never grew up. Chapter 13. The Tunnel of Hell. That night was strangely hot. No rain, no wind, just a suffocating weight in the air. Driving along a familiar suburban route, Locke suddenly saw a tunnel ahead, one he had never noticed before. A sign read, "Thang Long Tunnel, shortcut." Locke frowned. Strange, I've driven this road for years. How come I've never seen this tunnel? Yet on the GPS, the route appeared clearly, showing the tunnel leading straight to the city center. Thinking it must be newly opened, he turned in. Darkness swallowed the taxi whole. The headlights reached only a few meters ahead. Water dripped steadily from the damp walls, echoing like faint sobs. Minutes passed. The tunnel stretched on endlessly. No exit in sight. The clock neared 2 a.m., but still nothing but darkness ahead. Then from the walls, gray hands reached out, clawing at the windows. Nails scraped with a shriek that made his hair stand on end. In the rearview mirror, distorted faces pressed against the glass, eyes bulging, mouths open in silent screams. Locke panicked, stomping the gas. The speedometer needle spun wildly. But the taxi seemed stuck, frozen in place. Suddenly, the radio blared, voices whispering in unison. "Come down, join us, join us." Terrified, Locke gripped the wheel with trembling hands. His chest tightened as if his soul was being dragged out. In desperation, he screamed and jerked the wheel violently. Crash! The taxi slammed into the tunnel wall. Locke opened his eyes. He was back on a lonely suburban road. No tunnel in sight, only the faint glow of a few street lamps. But on the windshield, smeared deep into the glass, remained handprints slick with slime. Proof that he had escaped the tunnel of hell. Chapter 14. The Parallel Driver. After the nightmare in the tunnel of hell, Locke began to wonder if he was even alive, or if he had slipped into some parallel world. Every night behind the wheel, he felt countless unseen eyes staring at him. One night, around 1 a.m., he drove across an old bridge spanning a black river when suddenly, from the distance, an identical taxi approached. His heart pounded. The car was exactly the same license plate, same scratch on the door, even the flickering headlights. The other taxi stopped in the middle of the bridge. Locke braked too. The two cars faced each other in silence. Through the windshield, Locke froze. The driver in the other taxi was himself. The same tired face, the same bloodshot eyes. The man stared back, as though looking into a mirror only meters away. The radio in Locke's cab buzzed alive. A hoarse voice whispering, "That one is not you. That one is your abandoned soul." The driver in the opposite car smirked. His smile warped, chilling. He raised a hand, pressing it against the glass, exactly where Locke's trembling hand rested. The windshield quivered, icy as though electricity surged through it. Locke felt his soul being pulled across. The other man's eyes glowed brighter, while Locke's body grew numb. Panicked, Locke screamed, slamming the accelerator. His taxi screeched, darting past the twin. In that instant, As they crossed, he saw his double, face pale, mouth open wide in a silent scream. When he looked back, the bridge was empty, only shadows, no car. But in the rearview mirror, Locke still saw it, his own reflection sitting in the backseat, grinning grotesquely. Chapter 15. Passengers from the other side. After meeting the parallel driver, Locke was shaken to his core. He considered quitting for good. But then the phone rang non-stop. The dispatch center assigned him more rides nearby. Crushed by debt, he reluctantly accepted. The screen displayed clearly, passenger, Nguyen Ban Thuc 2:15 a.m., pickup, Alley 23. Old Quarter. Locke shuddered. The name sounded familiar, like he had heard it before. The taxi stopped at Alley 23. The narrow lane was pitch dark, damp, and silent, yet the system showed the passenger had boarded. Locke turned back. The seat was empty. Before he could react, the radio crackled with a distorted voice. "Take me back to my hometown. I've waited so long for this ride." Terror gripped him. Then memory struck. Nguyen Ban Thuc was one of the men who died in the Doi Cat bus accident that Old Tu had spoken of. Shaking, Locke tried shutting off the dispatch system, but new ride requests kept flashing across the screen. Passenger, Tran Thi Lua 1:45 a.m., pickup, the cursed intersection. Passenger, Le Van Dung 2 a.m., pickup, Tram Forest. Passenger, Nguyen Thi Hua 2:10 a.m., pickup, abandoned hospital. Every name belonged to souls Locke had already driven. Heavy breathing filled the backseat. A whisper brushed his ear. Chilling. "You're our driver now, from this moment, forever." In the rearview mirror, countless passengers appeared, crowding the cab, faces pale, eyes wide, all grinning with lifeless mouths. Locke gripped the wheel, body trembling, knowing from now on his passengers would no longer belong to the living. Chapter 16. The Abandoned Taxi. Haunted night after night, Locke was breaking down. He could no longer tell what was real and what was illusion. Ghostly passengers clung to him relentlessly, draining his body and mind. One evening, while driving past an abandoned industrial zone, he spotted a yellow taxi left on the roadside. The body was rusted, windows clouded with grime, yet the license plate was identical to his. Down to the last number. Locke slammed the brakes, heart hammering. He stepped out and approached. Inside the decayed cab, the seats were torn and rotted, but in the driver's seat sat a figure, a man turning to face him. It was Locke's own face, deathly pale, eyes hollow, mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. Terrified, Locke staggered back. The door of the abandoned taxi creaked open, releasing a foul, moldy stench. From inside came a rasping whisper. "This is the real car. That one you drive is only a corpse. You must return to us." At once, the headlights of the wrecked taxi flared to life. Though no battery remained, the beams blinded him, forcing him to the ground. When he looked up, the vehicle had vanished. Only weeds swayed in the empty lot. Yet on the asphalt remained dark oil stains, fresh and smeared like tire marks. Back in his own cab, sweat dripping, Locke found something on the driver's seat, an old rearview mirror. Cracked and grimy, he recognized it. It was the very mirror that had shattered days ago. His chest tightened. From now on, he knew for certain, a parallel taxi existed, one that belonged to the dead, and it was pulling him closer every night. Chapter 17. The Blue Flame. After encountering the abandoned taxi, Locke lived in constant dread. Every night he sat behind the wheel. He felt as though he were inside a four-wheeled coffin, drifting closer to death. That night, the streets were silent, no wind, no rain. As he drove through the outskirts, a sound rustled from the backseat, like someone had just sat down. He turned. The seat was empty, yet the air grew icy cold, so heavy it choked his lungs. Then suddenly, from the backseat burst a pale blue flame, flickering without heat, filling the cab with a ghostly glow. Within it appeared a charred figure, skin peeling, eyes rolled white, lips split wide into a twisted grin. Locke screamed, slamming the brakes, but the car didn't stop. It sped onward, as though controlled by invisible hands. The blue fire spread, licking across the cabin. Instead of burning, the flames morphed into dozens of faces, twisted and weeping, crying out, "We burned, we died in the fire. Take us away, take us out." The smoke grew thick, clawing at his throat. His eyes stung. He struggled to move the wheel, but his arms were locked stiff. In despair, he shouted, "What do you want from me? I'm only a driver." The flames shrank, swirling into a scorched hand reaching toward him. It touched his shoulder, his flesh seared with pain. Locke squeezed his eyes shut, releasing the wheel in helpless terror. Then, just as suddenly, it ended. The taxi screeched to a stop at the roadside. The fire was gone. The cab was empty. Only a black burn mark on his shoulder remained, proof it had been real. Shaking, drenched in sweat, he knew then, his taxi carried not just lost souls, but also the fire of hell itself. Chapter 18. The Final Passenger. That night, Locke made up his mind. This would be his last ride. He no longer had the strength to endure these endless nights of terror. Just one more fare, he thought, and then I'll quit. The city was shrouded in thick fog. The clock read 2 a.m. driving down an empty street. He spotted an old man standing by the roadside, leaning on a cane, frail and trembling. The old man raised his hand. Locke hesitated, then pulled over. "Where to, sir?" he asked, voice hoarse. The old man gave a faint smile, answering in a deep, muffled tone, "Take me home, just to the end of this road." The taxi moved forward. Silence filled the cab, heavy and suffocating. The old man sat still, eyes closed, his breathing steady yet unnaturally cold. Uneasy, Locke glanced into the mirror and froze. His own seat was empty. In the reflection, only the old man sat quietly, while the driver's seat showed nothing at all. His heart pounded. Trembling, he whispered, Who are you?" The old man opened his eyes, gazed deep and endless. His voice resounded like from another realm. "I am the final ferryman, and you are now the passenger." The car shook violently. Streetlights flickered out, darkness swallowing everything. Locke felt his body pulled away from the wheel, drifting backward toward the seat. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer driving. He sat hunched in the backseat, cold seeping into his bones. The driver's seat was empty. A whisper filled the car. "This ride is your last." Locke tried to scream, but no sound escaped his throat. Chapter 19. The Driverless Taxi. After the final ride, Locke never returned to the garage. For 3 days straight, none of his colleagues saw him. Some said he had fled the city. Others whispered he had fallen sick, bedridden somewhere. But night shift drivers swore they saw Locke's taxi roaming the streets at dawn. It moved silently, headlights flickering, engine growling in the stillness. The terrifying part: no one sat in the driver's seat. The wheel turned on its own, tires rolling as though steered by unseen hands. One motorbike driver recounted seeing it pass an alley. Through the windshield, the driver's seat was empty, but the backseat was crammed with pale faces, all grinning at once. A street vendor claimed she heard a blaring horn behind her as she packed up. Turning, she saw the taxi idling meters away, engine running though the windows were pitch black. The glass rolled down, and she heard a whisper, "Want to ride with us?" The story spread. The driverless taxi became the city's dread. Rumor had it that anyone who stepped inside was never seen again. One night, curious youths followed it on motorbikes. The taxi glided ahead, relentless, reaching a dead-end road. It didn't stop. Instead, it plunged into the shadows and vanished. All that remained were burnt tire marks, scorched deep into the asphalt like scars from hell. Since then, whenever the clock strikes 2 a.m., some still glimpse the faint yellow beams of the taxi's headlights, drifting endlessly through the night. Chapter 20. The Call from Hell. Since the driverless taxi appeared, the dispatch center where Locke once worked began to experience eerie disturbances. At exactly 2 a.m., the system would receive ride requests. One night, a dispatcher named Han picked up a call. On the other end was a woman's voice, soft, faint, echoing as though from far away. "Please, send me a taxi. Pick me up at Doi Cat Cemetery." Han shivered. She typed the number into the system, only to find it had been cancelled more than 10 years ago. At once, more calls flooded in, every one from disconnected numbers, belonging to those who had died in tragic accidents across the city. The monitor flickered wildly, displaying new bookings. Nguyen Van Thuc, pickup, Doi Cat Cemetery. Tran Thi Lua, pickup, the Cursed Intersection. Le Van Dong, pickup, Tram Forest. Nguyen Thi Hoa, pickup, the abandoned hospital. Every name Seoul's lock had once carried. Panic surged. Han reached for the disconnect button, but the office speakers erupted with whispers, layered and desperate. Where's our taxi? Call a cab for us. We must go home. The lights cut out. The computer screen glowed sickly green, reflecting dozens of pale faces, eyes bulging, mouths twisted into smiles. Outside, the clock struck 2 a.m. A low engine roar echoed closer and closer, pressing against the window. Han saw it. Locke's taxi idling at the curb. No driver sat behind the wheel, but the backseat was packed with passengers, lifeless eyes staring up at her office. The phone rang again. On the screen flashed the words, "Call from hell, your taxi has arrived." A whisper rose right behind her. "Do you want to ride with us?" Han screamed. The building went dark. Outside, the taxi rolled away slowly, leaving behind only the wail of its horn, echoing through the night like a cry from the underworld.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.